Hello and welcome to Letters Home, a story of a World War II B-17 pilot from Lowell, Michigan in his own words, and he just so happens to be my grandpa. I'm your host, Annie Whitlock, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, my dad, Mitch McMahon, my aunt, Lori Summerfield, and Dale Croft from the Lowell Historical Museum.
In each episode of Letters Home, we're going to dive into letters written by my dad during his time in World War II that he sent to his parents, siblings, and friends back home in Lowell, Michigan. We'll be reading his own words and giving some context as to what was happening in the world and in Lowell at the time he wrote these.
In this episode, Dad has a lot of free time on his hands in Blythe. We learn about World War II weapons, Bruce's changing plans, and his love for maple sugar candy.
He loves his sweets, right? Well, yeah, he definitely has a lot of free time on his hands. We're going to start this episode with a letter where Bruce is describing just like a relaxing afternoon on March 14th, 1943. So in his own words.
Sunday. Dear Mother and Dad, it's Sunday at 1 in the afternoon, and I don't fly until 1 tomorrow morning, so I'm just loafing. I'm lying on a cot outside my barracks and, with one elbow as a prop, trying to make this legible. Today is like every other. It's a typical August day at home. There are a few bees buzzing around. It's quiet. When you breathe deep, you can smell the hot pavement like it does when it's hot at home. There are a few high fleece clouds in the blue sky, except for the roaring takeoff of a fort every so often. It's almost like a hammock out on the front hill. Mass was at 8:30 this morning, so I came back and, jumped back into bed for a couple hours, and now I'm just enjoying my leisure. When I think of you and Dad being cold at home, it's hard to imagine that a few hours in the air could make a change like that. By the way, when does it start to get warm at home? Here it is March 14th, and I get letters saying it's 0 degrees and below. Doesn't sound very much like March. If I get a chance to come home to get my teeth fixed, I'll hardly know what to wear, although it'll probably be warm by then. Hope you don't say anything about my possibly coming home, because it's so uncertain I don't believe I'll get the chance. I would like to get home for my birthday, but it'll probably not work out. If I were a paddlefoot, flight officer's name for a ground officer, my chances of getting home would be much better. As it is, if I get any time off, 10 men of my crew will also be laid off. For this reason, they don't give us passes.
I like how it's like a typical August day at home, but it's March, so it just goes how hot it is and
where he is,
just hanging out. But yeah, this letter reveals that he put in for a leave home to get his teeth fixed. He has never mentioned anything before about his teeth needing work in any of these letters so far. This is the first I've read about it anyway. I don't know. I think he was trying to find an excuse to go home. I don't know. Did Grandpa have teeth that needed worked out? Like, what happened here? I don't know.
Oh, there's other letters that describe them.
Oh, really? Okay, We'll get to those, huh?
Yeah.
Do you want to give it away? I mean,
no,
let's not give it away. There's more letters. You're going to come on.
All
right. Talk about it.
Okay, but up to this point, he's never mentioned. I mean, maybe he's mentioned going to the dentist on the base, I think, but I don't know. Anyway, I thought he was trying to find an excuse to go home. Saying, my teeth need work.
I know.
Okay. Well, he reveals in a letter a week later that he did not get his leave approved to get his teeth fixed. So our listeners will also just have to wait a little longer to see when Bruce will finally make it back to Lowell. He does find out what the rest of his month is going to look like in a letter that he writes on March 20th, 1943, in his own words.
Saturday evening. Dear Mother and Dad, I'm going to stop telling you about my future plans. That's right. They've been changed again. Just since I returned from L.A., I've been notified that I won't go out with my crew again. My orders are to stay here again in order to train another crew. This means I'll be here another month or so. Yesterday I was going to leave the 23rd, as this was posted on Friday afternoon. Today I'm staying. That's what I call really changing. Now, if you were to receive a telegram tomorrow saying I was to leave the 23rd again, don't be surprised. I don't mind at all. Only thing is, my crew is getting to be efficient, and we smoothed out most of their rough spots. Well, tomorrow or the next day, I'll be assigned a new co-pilot, bombardier, navigator, and 6 enlisted men. I'll miss my other 3 officers, but they'll be assigned another first pilot and will be gone by the 23rd. The crew will remain intact. Only difference will be they'll get another first pilot who won't have as much experience. Keep your eyes peeled on those papers. Maybe in a month or so, you'll read about Crew 37 of the Squadron 391st, who just knocked down 4 Zeros and bombed Krupp again. If you do, it'll be this crew I've trained. I believe they're heading across after a 10-day leave and a little brushing up with their new pilot. From this, don't surmise that I would have gone in a month if I'd stayed with them. If I'd remained with them, I would have been at least 3 months before they would have left. I guess, Mother, you wanting me to be an instructor has been heard by old Lady Fate. However, I hope to remain with this new crew when they are assigned to me. I'll finish this tomorrow.
There's a lot to break down in this letter, so we'll pause here where Bruce pauses. The letter keeps going, but first of all, the crew that Bruce trained is going overseas without him. The one that we talked about in the last episode, we described all the different characters. He seems a bit bummed by this, I think, but he references bombing the Krupp again. He's referring to the Krupp munitions plant, which was bombed in early March 1943, so right around this time. Dale, can you tell us anything more about what the Krupp munitions plant was and why we would bomb it?
Yeah, I found some really interesting information, and one really big piece of information, which I'll talk about in a minute. The Krupp munitions plant was a German armaments factory that manufactured artillery, munitions, ammunition, and other military equipment for the German armies during World War I and World War II. Fred Krupp founded the plant in 1811 to produce cast steel. The company grew under his son Alfred and grandson Frederick Alfred, becoming one of the world's top steelmakers and arms manufacturers. After the Nazis seized power in Germany, Krupp supported the regime and was one of many German businesses that profited from slave labor. Upon the war's end, the head of the company, Alfred Krupp, was tried and convicted as a war criminal for employing prisoners of war, foreign civilians, and concentration camp inmates under inhumane conditions in support of the Nazi war effort. In one of Hitler's speeches, he said, "I want German boys to be as hard as Krupp steel." The Krupp factory manufactured several heavy railway seized guns designed to destroy heavy fortifications. The Dora, which was named after the wife of the engineer, and the Great Gustav. Here's the information about the Great Gustav. The Great Gustav was massive. The entire rig was over 150 feet long, 40 feet tall, and weighed nearly 1,500 tons. The barrel alone was 100 feet long and had a 31-inch wide bore that fired 2 different caliber shells measuring over, think about this, 2 feet wide and 12 and a half feet long was the shell.
Gosh.
It took 250 men 3 days to assemble the gun, 2,500 to lay 2 parallel railroad tracks to ensure stability and weight distribution and dig embankments for it. The train carrying the gun was of 25 cars, a total length of 1.5 kilometers to haul it. 2 flak battalions were needed to protect the gun from air attack from Allied bombers that could easily spot the hulky gun and a unique track layout from the air and make it an easy target.
Okay.
The 5-ton high explosive round carried, this is what was in that 12-foot, 2.5 by 12-foot, carried 1,500 pounds of explosives that made an impact crater almost 30 feet wide and 30 feet deep and could hit a target downrange nearly 30 miles away. The heavier 7-ton armor-piercing round contained just over 550 pounds of explosives and it had an effective target range of about 23 miles. Given the size of the shells, it could only, and this is amazing too, the size of the shells could only fire 14 projectiles a day. Because they had to take cranes to lift the shell onto the gun to load it in. The shells could penetrate 23 feet of reinforced concrete, 3 feet of steel armor, and 30 feet of solid ground.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Since the barrel could only move up and down, not side to side, it had to be aimed by hauling the entire apparatus to a bend in the track to help align.
Okay. Oh, wow.
There was no swinging it left and right. It only went up and down. But 2,500 men, or 2,500 men to lay the railroad track. 250 men, 3 days to put it together. 25 railroad cars to haul it. That was the Great Gustav, and the Dora was basically the same thing. So those were 2 of the massive guns that the Krupp manufacturers made.
Okay.
Well, I remember hearing of Big Bertha, but this is somewhat.
Yeah.
This is
well.
This
He
is
did the Big Bertha was World War I.
Oh, okay.
So and they did something. They talked about submarines. They helped build ships. They did, and then the great grandson was a war criminal.
We would want to bomb this, get rid of all their
so now
big
you
guns
know,
they're
yeah,
building.
that's why they bombed the plant and
I see.
finally
Okay.
got it out of commission. So it didn't do anything. So there'll be some you know, photo. I found a great photo of the great Gustav.
Oh my.
That-
Okay.
Oh.
Well, that's good because I mean, Bruce's letter made it sound like the Krupp was something like that everybody knew about, which makes sense. Like it was famous, if you will, and probably a big deal if when we take care of it and knock it out. So that's great. All right. So Bruce keeps going with the same letter, so we'll keep going the same letter. So in his own words.
Today's a real scorcher. It's so darned hot, I'll bet you can fry an egg on the runways. One thing is certain, before long, they'll have to close the runways. They're getting really bad. Although they won't be bad enough to wreck a ship, they'll get so soft that there'll be plenty of blowouts, scraped wingtips, broken props. Surprising that we haven't had any of these small accidents already. Either Monday or Tuesday last week, you get so you can't remember days, I flew over Deming, where Jack is stationed. I would have liked to have been able to land, but my orders called for a rendezvous at 10,000 feet over a place called San Simon with 2 other 17s, so it was impossible. Tell Aunt Lizzie, even though I can't see Jack personally, I'm keeping pretty close check on Deming. Rendezvous is the type of navigation that is of great importance in a heavy bombardment. A bomber takes off from one field and others from different fields also leave, although their takeoff times can vary as much as 30 minutes. Upon a certain prearranged course, each airplane proceeds to a certain latitude and longitude, on the map. And if you are to arrive too early, it's no good, and similarly if you arrive too late. The objective is to arrive right on the second and then proceed in formation to your objective. This is all the navigators worry, and all I have to do is fly the compass courses he gives me at the speed he wants. It's quite a trick of navigation, as you can see, that changing winds and pressures can throw off his ground speed and true heading. It necessitates his keeping one eye stuck on his sextant and the other in his drift meteor. How is your blood pressure these days, Mother? Don't you keep a single cough for me, will ya? Also, don't try to write me as much, as I imagine it doesn't help your heart any to do it. Of course, now that doesn't mean to stop writing me altogether, but if you don't write too often, I'll understand. Anyway, that old Dad can sure put together a swell letter, so I don't get too lonesome for you. There isn't anything more to write about right now, so I'll write again tomorrow or the next day. Hope you're getting a little spring around home now. Those pictures of King Milling showed what a hard winter you've had this year. Brr. Your loving son, his love and prayers, J. Bruce.
Nice. So we see a mention of Jack Lally here,
Cousin Jack.
cousin Jack, his mom, Aunt Lizzie, and then he's stationed in Deming. We'll hear more about that. And then he mentions the King Milling fire, sort of, right there at the end from last week, that he saw pictures of it and how Dale had talked about how cold it was when
15
everyone was
degrees below.
fighting the fires. So he's sweating in the desert as the runways are melting, and everybody back at home is
Freezing.
freezing. So, all right, now it's time for our segment where we talk about what was going on in the world and in Lowell when Bruce wrote these letters. It's late March 1943, and Bruce mentions some global and local news in a letter he wrote from March 24th, 1943, in his own words.
March 24th, 1943. Dear folks, I have a few minutes this morning, so I'll use this machine to drop you a few lines. As usual, everything is going fine with your youngest. I'm not flying now as I don't have a crew. Hope in a few days to be assigned one. I wrote to Raj and family yesterday and also dropped one to you. I'm sorry that my letters aren't better spaced out, but it's just a case of writing when I get the chance. Therefore, don't be surprised if you get 5 letters from me this week and 1 next. I'll try to see that no week goes by without at least some word. Mom, you said that the doc said you were careful. If you were careful, you'd be okay. Are you sure that is the case and that you're really in better health? Don't be keeping anything from me now. Your verse that you put in my last letter about being away from home certainly sums up a fellow's feelings in here. If your parents are okay, you don't have a worry in the world. Dad, I think you've got a good man in the Hoover boy. I'd imagine that he's quite smart and should be dependable. If he learns to run the engines, that'll give you Paul to do the line work in the spring. I'll bet you people hate to see Dr. Mack leave. I thought they would leave him because of the big business they have, but they figure on needing him worse in here. Speaking of in here, I'm still as confident as ever that this war will be over by the late 43 or the spring of 44, contrary to what the newspaper would lead you to believe. I don't see how it can be much past May of next year. Will you stick by me on this? We'll wait and see how far wrong I am. Remember, I predicted when I was in school that we would go to war with Japan. That guess was okay. I'm sure this one is equally as good. You're still having plenty of good old winter? One thing is certain, this has been the toughest one you've had in a long time. Seems the minute that I leave home, something spectacular always happens. Well, I have to give up this typewriter now, so I'll just say so long, and God bless you. Your loving son, J. Bruce.
Yeah, this is one of the typed letters that we have. So do we know who the Hoover boy was, or Paul? Any of these people?
No.
I'm guessing Paul might be Paul Rickert. Was that one of the people we talked about last time, I think? But, yeah, I don't know who the Hoover boy is. I did find Dr. Mack in the ledger, though. His name was Dr. J.A. McDonnell. I don't know his first name, but he worked with Dr. B.H. Shepard, who I'm assuming was Dr. Shep from all those earlier letters. So they worked together, and he was commissioned to the Medical Corps of the Navy, and he left Lowell to serve. So he was drafted.
Wow.
And I think that's why Bruce was saying, I'm surprised that they drafted him because he was doing so much business in Lowell, but they need him in the Army. So I happened to find that in the ledger as I was looking for other things. So that's who Dr. Mack is. But Bruce also predicts the war will be over by the end of 1943 or early 44.
Oh,
and
he was right about Japan now. Don't
he
forget.
was,
Right
but
about Japan.
he does say, we'll wait to see how far wrong I am. He's pretty far wrong.
Yeah.
We know it does not end until 1945, so he's off by more than a year. But in this time, March 1943, a new technology was invented to aid in the war effort, duct tape. I happened to find this along the way. Dale, what can you tell us about the invention of duct tape?
Well, I know for one thing, duct tape is on a lot of my things at home.
I mean,
I have the colored duct tape. Make
Of
it even
course.
fancier. Well, duct tape in 1943 became a vital tool for the military during World War II. Vesta Stowd, a munition factory worker, noticed that the paper tape used to seal ammunition boxes was often torn off or damaged in battle. Vesta had one of those aha moments. Why not create a waterproof cloth tape to seal the boxes instead? She suggested it to her supervisor, but didn't find the support she was looking for. So one of the typical woman, she said,
she's not
"My
gonna take no
gosh,
for an answer."
the heck with this. I'll find somebody that will." So she did what anyone would do on February 10th, 1943. She wrote a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt outlining the problem with her solutions, complete with diagrams.
Oh, man.
went right to the top.
Yeah. President Roosevelt was so impressed that he passed her letter on to the War Production Board, which mailed a letter to Vesta letting her know that her idea of duct tape had been approved. The board then asked the Industrial Tape Corporation, which later became Johnson & Johnson, to make a product because of its demonstrated expertise in producing adhesive tapes. The rest is duct tape history. The tape was made of cotton duct fabric coated with waterproof adhesive. It was easy to handle and saved time in manufacturing and packaging war materials. Soldiers nicknamed the tape duct tape because it was waterproof like a duck. They also called it the 100-mile-an-hour tape because it could hold together a speeding Jeep as well as fix anything from fenders on Jeeps to boots.
Of course.
Yeah.
To this day, soldiers use duct tape to do everything from repair equipment to patch footwear, as well as keep the hood on my John Deere tractor from falling off.
There you go.
I think I
Along
have some
with it.
footwear with duct tape.
I mean, I'm sure, Mitch, you have duct tape at home.
Yes. Yes.
Lori, all of us have
Of
duct
course.
tape.
Yes.
But I don't know, and I wondered why. Why did they spell it D-U-C-T now? Originally, I guess, but they call it duct D-U-C-K tape. The soldiers did because of the waterproofing. But I guess people would go, I'm not going to buy duct tape. D-U-C-K tape, D-U-C-T tape sounds better. I
That
guess
makes
I don't
sense.
know.
Yeah, I
Anyway.
just love that.
More on that later.
Invented by a woman.
Somebody will tell us.
As more and more history comes out, you're finding what an important role that many, 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 many women played.
Absolutely.
Well, that was
all over.
huge. That was
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
It's a
Hope she
little-
made some money off of that.
Well,
I don't know.
yeah.
I hope.
And
Hope
that-
she
yeah.
got her patent or something. We'll have to look into that.
We know 3M did okay.
My John Deere
Yeah,
tractor
Johnson and
goes,
Johnson.
I don't know,
Oh,
maybe
Johnson and
1
Johnson.
mile an hour.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, good for her. I just I think it's amazing. She's like, yeah, my supervisor at the plant didn't like it. I'm just going to write the president.
I like how she just decided on the top.
I'm just going to skip a lot of
Yeah, she
stuff.
didn't mess around. She went right to the...
Love it. And then
And
Roosevelt
then he got
read
it.
it.
Yeah,
I know.
that's amazing.
That's also amazing. That's pretty cool. All right, we're going to read 2 more short letters to end this episode today. And I think they both show off what Bruce is doing as he's waiting for his new crew, which is probably not a whole lot. So we'll start with a letter from March 25th in his own words.
Thursday night. Dear Mother and Dad, just noticed that the ship on this letterhead is an old B-17, so I've drawn in the way the vertical stabilizer should look on the B-17's Fs. Oh, silly me telling you how they look when every magazine has at least 2 or 3 pictures of them. Well, for the next 3 weeks or so, I'm on special duty, and so I'll fly missions without a crew of my own. Any transportation or operational missions I'll handle. Probably with only a co-pilot and enlisted crew engineer and radio operator. They asked if I wanted to do this work for a few weeks, and I accepted. It'll include checking out co-pilots. I figured they were all holding me back in order to train another crew, but I won't be assigned a new one for at least 3 weeks. This means I'll be here and on across countries, probably or perhaps as far as east as Pennsylvania, for about 2 months. If you should see a 17 go over, it might be me at that. They'll all be straight through missions, so I'll be back here at least in a couple days. I'll probably get close to home, but still not be able to see or call you. That's the Army. These last couple of weeks have been really hot. I sure hope I'm off this desert when summer comes. There isn't much to write about now. After a few trips east, I'll probably have plenty of descriptions to send to you. Unfortunately, I won't be able to tell you all of any of these trips in advance. But after they're completed, I can tell you about them. Well, now it's past 10, so I'll hit the sack as I have to report each morning at 7 over at the operations office. All my love and prayers. Jay Bruce. Your loving son, Jay Bruce.
He really did color in that B-17 on the letterhead. And, of course, you can see the actual letters with his drawings on the Lowell Historical Museum website. So every time he does a little drawing, we'll put it up there. But, yeah, he's not doing a whole lot. He's on these special missions that he can't tell us about, of course.
Until they're done. And then he can.
So, so Bruce wrote a letter just to Frank on March 28, 1943. Perhaps he wants to take it easy on his mom, Lotta, but this one is a little lighter. So, in his own words.
Sunday. Dear Dad, nothing you could have sent to me was more welcome than the maple sugar. And so much of it. You'll have any for yourself? Each time I bite into a piece, and I'm eating some right now, it brings a picture of home in early spring. Guess you remember how much I like this stuff. I can remember that you like to shave it into small flecks when you ate it. There are 1,000 little things that the West doesn't know exist, but it's these so-called little things that make a place home. I'll still say, give me Grand Valley in preference to the whole state of California. Lately, I've been a man of leisure around here. I took a crew out a couple of days ago, but since then I've been just loafing. Anytime they want a pilot, they call me, but so far I haven't made any long hops for them. When I'm assigned to crew duty again, I'll get plenty of flying, but so long as I'm an operations pilot, I'll enjoy my spare time. Tell Barney thanks for the batteries, and also tell Joe Joyce how much I appreciate the cigarettes. I'll write him if I get a chance. Take good care of yourself and don't let Mom overdo. All my love and prayers, your grateful son, Jay Bruce.
It's another Barney reference. We got to figure this out. This is on my mysteries list. I don't know. We'll see. Do any of you know?
It's got to be at Barnes, right? You would think?
I don't know.
Or you think it could be. Barney was a
we'll have to
first
ask.
name then.
Do any of you know Joe Joyce? Joe Joyce, that's a tongue twister right there to say.
No.
Never heard that one either.
Okay. Well,
No.
maybe I'll have to go back and look, see if he was a classmate of Bruce's. Sent him cigarettes, which is nice. And then, of course, we have the reference to the maple sugar. So what is this? What is maple sugar? Like, you describe it to me, or the listeners, like, did you eat it as kids?
Yes, of course.
Have you
I
never
was surprised
seen?
that you didn't know.
I don't know.
Have you ever seen maple syrup
Well,
coming
yeah.
from the?
Coming from the tree?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how they make
Maybe.
maple sugar. That's how.
Okay.
Well, maybe you better do that next year with your kids, and then from
They
that
need
they
to come
have.
out to the museum when we do the sap run at the
Whitlock Center.
I show how
little-
they tap the trees and the flow of sap, and how it was done 100 years ago.
Nice little plug
And
for
make
the
a
Lowell
maple-
Historical
yeah.
Museum, the Windbox
Yeah.
Center.
All the
Well,
the classic
so
ones.
I bought some, and it's much easier to find than the Divinity. My
yeah,
quest for the Divinity was very difficult. This was not difficult at all. But the kind that I got are in the shape of these little leaves, these little maple leaves.
They're always in the shape.
But that's not
Not
okay.
always.
So not always, because he talks about how you have to shave it. You would shave it into these little flecks.
Yeah, they used to be the bigger.
All right,
bricks
well,
of it,
Here,
but-
everybody can have a little piece of maple sugar. We ate Divinity on this podcast, so we obviously have to
Oh,
eat
man.
maple sugar.
It's been
on
a
here.
long time.
Okay,
since
so this
I've
was
done
like in the spring, right? You would say.
Spring.
Oh, man.
Yep, the maple trees.
Okay,
That's
it's
why
way
I
better than
shaped it
That's
Divinity.
why I said spring. All right.
They come out of maple trees, so that's why it's usually shaped as a maple.
Oh, it's exactly as
man.
I remember
Yeah.
it.
Oh man, this is really good.
It is too much.
It is exactly as I
Still too
remember
much.
it.
This is way better than Divinity. I'm telling you. Okay, so this is like a Michigan thing, right? Because it comes from the trees. Because he's explaining or I guess Midwest thing. 'Cause he's explaining the people in the West don't understand.
Well, they don't
maple
have a lot
sugar.
preserved, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So he must have gotten a big
Oh.
brick of this stuff.
Well, this is good.
That's good.
Oh
That's
my god,
very good.
It was really
Very
good. All right, so now I know why.
I made myself sick eating a big block of it and haven't had any since. But
We're
boy.
going to be fighting over the 4 that are left here.
They're so tiny. I'm disappointed. Oh, I love it. Shave it into small flecks when you ate it. That's so funny that Great Grandpa Frank used to do that. That's cool. So now we get a little imagine Bruce sitting and being bored in Blythe, California in March. You know what? Just brings me back.
I come by that sweet tooth naturally.
Oh my gosh, me too. Absolutely. And I'm glad we ended this episode on something sweet.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
A little
Thank
maple
you.
sugar. Well, I'm going to bring it back because he mentions it in several other letters. So it'll be an excuse to eat more.
Okay.
Well, thank you for listening to Letters Home. We hope you continue to listen as we go through Bruce's story. You can listen to Letters Home on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the Lowell Historical Museum website and YouTube channel. New episodes drop every Thursday. The Lowell Historical Museum has digitized versions of Bruce's letters so you can read them in full, along with primary sources for most of the people, places, and events we've talked about here today, plus more. You can also follow the Lowell Historical Museum on Facebook and the Letters Home podcast on Instagram at Letters Home Lowell. Thank you to Roger McNaughton for our podcast music and to WRWW 92.3 FM for letting us record in their studio at Lowell High School every week. Tune in or stream WRWW at lowellradio.org. See you next time.